Hey, all over the Geek Freaks. I am Frank, and today I'm joined by Daniel Rohmer, director, writer, creator of Chaser. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. It's a Friday night, so that's always a good thing.
Yes, it is. Can you tell everybody at home what Chaser is all about?
Yeah, so Chaser is kind of a fantastical story, and it's about a video editor who discovers this mysterious power that enables him to go back and re-edit the last day.
Hmm.
So, in doing that, he's basically trying to get with this girl, and keeps failing, and he goes back to try to re-edit it. But what happens is all this ripple effect, and the world starts going to haywire.
Yeah. It feels like there is almost a Morpheus in the room, right? Somebody who's kind of directing him on the outside. Is this going for the horror vibe or that sci-fi vibe? A little bit of both.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money as far as both. You never really set out to go for a vibe, at least I don't, but somehow it happens. You end up as a director, or you end up making thousands of decisions over the course of the entire shoot, or in the writing, all the way up through post, and then all those kind of lead to a style.
Hmm.
And then at the end, sometimes they sort of tack on like the genre. So it's like, okay, whatever you you want to call it,
Yeah.
but that's is yeah.
So it's looks so thrilling and exciting to watch. I was getting like a 24 sci-fi vibe, which is really cool. What got you to this idea? It's a very unique idea. The idea of making a film editor your protagonist, something that I think was a little bit of a hidden profession almost, but nowadays with social media and all the videos and stuff like that, I think more people are learning about editing. Why did you want to make that your protagonist?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's an easy thing to write for me because I relate to it. I spent many years working as an editor, to pay rent and to, kind of support directing, and I know that world very well. And then even the very first films I ever made kind of had to do with manipulating reality and rewinding things and slow-moing things. And so it just kind of naturally happened in that way.
Do you think that that ability to rewind and slow mo and stuff like that is that sort of the unsung ability that an editor generally has? I know a lot of people watch a movie don't think about the editor, but really they're the ones with the most time on the movie. Is that something that you felt like they need to share this with the world?
Yeah, I don't know. Like a lot of times editors tend to be solitary, like
Yeah.
they're in a room alone. I think writing can be that way too, especially if you're not co-writing. You people go up to like a cabin in the woods and write a novel or work on their screenplay. I think that's the kind of life that a lot of editors have. I personally don't like that.
Yeah.
I feel I need to go out and get interaction, and that's why I enjoy directing. But as an editor too, it's I guess it's the other side of the coin.
Yeah. It feels like it's a bit brutal. You always imagine it's for some reason a dark room. It's like they got stashed away in the back of the lot and they're
Right.
working on Avengers for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
It's a long process.
Sometimes it's nice to have like a pet in the room, like you
Yeah.
got a cat. My favorite is I had a cat that would always jump on my lap, and cats, they don't care about what you're
No.
doing. They don't have any notes. And that's good. And then, or even better as a person, if you got
Yeah.
a person hanging out and then maybe they're half asleep, or like every once in a while they look up, and then it makes you less obsessive, I guess. And you're just like, oh, okay, reality is here somewhere.
That person who feels like they're so deep into their work and disjointed from maybe a normal social life, do you think that's what makes for a good let's see, hopeless romantic in this case?
Yeah, I think there's something that editors have. They have to be in tune with very minute things, and they have to be a very sensitive person
Hmm.
to make performances cut together. And it's weird because I was watching Walter Murch. He has a book out, multiple books, and lots of video clips. And he was talking about just just the way people blink and their tone of voice and the countenance and all these things. They feed into the final edit and the way you design the edit. And it's like insane the amount of detail. And the editor, by the end of the film, they know more about the actor. Like they know like how far the eyes are apart from the actor, and like every time they stumble their words, and which things they have trouble with, maybe internally and in real life. And so a lot of times they know more about the actor than the actor even knows about themselves.
Yeah. And with all those takes too, it's really up to the editor to kind of flush out what the character's trying to portray. If they seem to pick up the takes where they have a little bit more of an aggressive tone, something like that, you could change the entire character in a story based off of whatever you did at the final touches of the movie. So it's a lot more power than maybe even the actor themselves know that they have,
Yeah, exactly. And then there's also a lot of different types of editing. There's performance editing, there's action editing, there's, at some point, sometimes you got to edit the trailer to the project. And a lot of people don't realize that different editors have different strengths. It's just like baseball, some people are great at stealing bases, some people are great at pinch hitting or whatever. And what I've found is, my strength isn't traditional back and forth dialogue. Like I actually have a hard time with just, a normal conversation. Anytime there's some kind of weird aspect to it, maybe it's like a dream sequence or a music montage or something like that. That's really, I really glom onto that.
Yeah, yeah, everybody's got their strengths. And in this case, we see Eddie, who's our editor in this film, in the series. He seems to be like belittled by his boss and stuff like that. What personal experiences did you bring in as a longtime editor into this project?
Um,
Basically, did you have any rough gigs that you were like, you know what, I'm going, yeah, I'm reflecting on this guy.
yeah, I don't think I purposely like tried to think, I've been through that. Let me stick it in
Okay.
here. But it's just, I think it's kind of like playing music. You just kind of start playing what kind of comes to your mind and what sort of easy to you. And for me, it was easy to write Eddie because it's basically like writing myself. And then eventually you do like deepen things like, okay, this is his flaw. Let's make it like really a lot worse than what it actually is. And then, you can logically go through and do that stuff. But um, I know Russ, he was always saying that he drew inspiration once he met me in person. He's like, oh crap, like Eddie is like very much like Dan.
Mhm.
And so he was like on set, like I didn't realize this, but he was like watching me through the whole shoot and like kind of trying to osmosis in.
That is cool. Now, as the writer and director, how much are you trying to keep your project looking like what you imagined when you were first putting it on the page, and how much are you working with somebody like Russ or Eddie in this, and letting the show kind of take its new form based off of what Eddie's giving you?
I tend to be very open, sometimes to a fault where I need to make sure I still get the story point in there, because
Mhm.
if I don't, then the audience might lose track of this important pivot. But um, yeah, I think, and then also the truth of the tone of voice and things like that. Like I can't stand it when like a line doesn't sound realistic. So I'll really, in the edit room, I'll really defer to a take that sounds like authentic, as opposed to like sometimes a take is more funny technically,
Mhm.
but I'll tend to go for the more authentic sounding one, which usually the result is the script is a lot funnier than the final result. So when I set out to write the script, when you read it, it's like, oh, it's quirky, it's funny. And then when you see the final product, it tends to be more realistic and maybe meta, if that makes any
Oh
sense.
yeah, yeah. Now, are you attempting to try to go for that humor that you originally put into the script, or are you seeing, oh, you know what, that more serious take is actually something that's going to benefit the story overall, so let me go with that one instead and change kind of what you meant to put out there?
It's just like you can't help do what you think is right. It's
Okay.
not really like I'm going for anything. It just it's like you're compelled to do what makes sense to you,
Yeah.
unless you get some note from like the higher ups or something that says you absolutely can't do something, or like maybe the people that you give your final cut to, or you show your thing. If everyone's saying this doesn't make sense, that doesn't work, if they all give you that same note, then I pay attention. I'm like, okay, I need to change that.
Yeah, it is a bit of a give and take on how much your creative direction needs to be put forward. And sometimes you run into budget or something like that, and you have to worry about all those things. With this one, the simple, I mean, it's not even the simple premise, but the idea that he can go back and edit the last 24 hours, that feels like that opens up so many questions in my mind immediately when I'm going into it's like, what would I do with this power? Is that something you run into often when you're driving around or washing dishes? You think like, oh, what would I do with the last 24 hours if I could change something? Did that kind of stick with you?
I am so used to editing, I will actually try to undo like I'll drop something and I'm like, okay, Command Z. Oh wait, there is no real life. So like my mind is already wired that way, which is really freaky.
That Command Z right there just made me twitch a little bit.
Yeah.
I know those buttons too well. Oh goodness. Yeah. So yeah, it is part of your life, and then it's amazing to see that being taken out onto the screen. What message are you trying to make sure the audience walks away with after watching the series?
Well, there's a theme in there.
Mhm.
Sometimes part way through you figure out what the theme is, and then once you figure that out, you try to say it in different ways and
Yeah.
sort of argue it back and forth. Now, a lot of people start with a theme, and that result can sometimes be really preachy in the end if you're like, you know, start with it. So I try not to do that, but this one had to do with perfection and we're human,
Yeah.
so we're imperfect, and to embrace your imperfection, and that's a beautiful thing. So that's kind of the theme of it.
Mhm.
But like I'm the worst at following that theme. Like every day, I'm like half of my day is not that. So I think I'm like trying to shout at myself, saying, "Hey, look, this is what you need to listen to." Even now, I'm like reminded of like, oh man, like I need to remember that.
Oh yeah, I've got yellow legal notepads everywhere around me that are like, okay, it's okay to do this and do that. So going back to again the writer, director, and editor, is that something you're catching yourself working on? Maybe you feel like, oh yeah, I'm always trying to perfect this, and then after working on this or something like that, you're like, yeah, I could scale it back. 80%'s okay.
It's difficult being multiple things,
I bet.
because yeah, it'd be like if you were president, like executive, like all the what are the three branches of the government? If you
Yeah.
were all of them, that would be a mistake. So I do try to like rely as much, and if I don't have to, I don't do that. But sometimes on like a more limited shoot, or like if you're you know have budget constrictions and things, sometimes you got to do stuff that you wouldn't normally do. But the thing I love about um, film and TV, and the nature of the art form, that was the whole thing that drew me to it in the first place, was that it's a collaborative art form,
Mhm.
and no other art form is that intensely collaborative. There are lots of different art forms that are collaborative. There's dance, there's all kinds of stuff, but film on such a massive scale, you're dealing with experts in all these different areas, especially as the director. You're lucky enough to like you oversee the vision, but you're not the one. Like Tarantino famously said, like you're not the one that's supposed to be the expert in all the departments. That's why you have the departments, and that's why you
Right.
have the department heads. So relax and just let the people, you hire the people and then let them do their job.
God, that seems so hard to do though. It's let go of those reins a little bit.
But once you see how great they are, then it's easier to,
Yeah,
like especially if you got like you're working with Joaquin Phoenix. Russ was amazing,
yeah.
and you see once that engine turns on, you're just like, it's very humbling, and it's just really cool.
With Chaser, what did you pull from Russ? What did Russ add to it that you were happy to see him kind of take off your plate a little bit?
What I love about Russ is like every take was not only usable but special in some way. So you're in the edit room and it's not like, okay, we got 8 takes and 7 of them aren't that great, but the one we did get one, so that okay, good. No, it was like all 8 takes were great and have different shades to them. So it just makes your work, first of all, it makes it way faster because you don't have to be like scraping through footage. And then second of all, like it takes it up a notch because then you can kind of more go for a style that you want as opposed to just like a maintenance level.
Yeah, from what I've seen so far, just of Russ's performance, it is one that's like almost you can almost feel the anxiety through the screen, and that's all performance and just a wonderful job that he's doing there. And yeah, it makes you anxious watching and like, how are you gonna, this is starting to get out of your control, and what are you gonna do? So, Russ is just nailing it in Chaser for sure.
Yeah, and as the lead too, you have to keep track of the arc of the character because if you're like a supporting role, you can come in and you do a couple scenes and then you're done.
Mhm.
But as especially over an entire, the running time is 3 hours on this thing. So over the whole series, you're shooting all out of order. You got to figure out what's going on. Or, in the middle of the film, his life's getting better and he's super excited and he's like, oh, badass. Well, you can't have that attitude if we're shooting the very beginning of the movie where he's like down and out, so he's got to all that stuff keep track of, and that's a very complex chess game that he plays very well.
That is an impressive skill in its own right. Not just acting, but also maintaining what emotional state your character is in at the point of filming. Uh, props to such a skilled actor. That is amazing. With Chaser, you have this coming out. Do you have any following seasons expected, or anything else in this world that you're developing?
Yes, so without giving a spoiler, the
Right.
the nature of the series ends in a way that flows into another season. So we're putting together ideas and starting a shop to studios or see who's interested in possibly picking up the second season.
And this one right here, you're on a lot of different places. You guys can check it out, but you're also on Amazon Prime. How is it working with Prime and working with that distribution? Are you familiar with them from past work?
I haven't worked with them before. So we have a distributor called Buffalo A, and they're the ones that picked up the series, and then they made the deal with Amazon. So, their props to Buffalo A. They did a good job with that, and yeah, and the next year or whatever,
Yeah.
we'll see what happens after that.
Again, adding one more hat to your many roles as marketer now. You got to market this out to the different distributors. It's fun. Um, Chaser is amazing, guys. Please check it out. I'm gonna have a link in the description to the trailer, and to where they can watch it on Prime and Tubi and many other places. Thank you so much for joining me today, Daniel. It has been an absolute delight.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Again, follow the links in the description and make sure you guys check out Chaser today. All right, guys. See you next week. Bye.